Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, we all know the immense benefit and the rewards attained for seeking higher education. So we are very excited to have an event here today to gain a deeper understanding of the different paths in doing so. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest. He is from Dallas, Texas, Mufti Hussein Kamani. We're very pleased to have him here today again. He was here not too long ago as a guest speaker for Juma Khutbah, and we're very excited to have him here at ICCL again. In Dallas, Mufti Kamani is an instructor at Qalam Institute, as well as a resident scholar at Masjid al-Rahman. He was born and raised in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Alhamdulillah, by the age of 9, he completed the memorization of the Holy Quran. He traveled to the United Kingdom and pursued formal Islamic ijazahs. There he studied Arabic language and literature, Islamic jurisprudence, tafsir of the Holy Quran, hadith, Islamic philosophy, and Aqidah. Mufti Kamani also completed postgraduate education in Islamic law and legal verdicts and obtained a graduate degree in business management from the University of Coventry in the UK. Qalam Institute is an educational entity with a mission to inspire growth, nurture education, and develop a sacred foundation. They provide access to Islamic knowledge in a practical, integrated, and professional manner. Inshallah, Mufti Kamani, please take the mic.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Khususan ala sayyidi rasulih wa khatim al-anbiya wa ala alihi al-azkiya wa ashabihi al-atqiya. Amma ba'd. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. خلق الإنسان من علق. اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. صدق الله العظيم. Throughout history, we have a long story of Muslims being minorities in lands throughout the world. Each generation moving from one place to a new place, seeking to further the cause of da'wah or for their own livelihood. And every time Muslims went somewhere, the big task that they faced was, how do we preserve our iman? For a Muslim, more important than their own livelihood is preserving their deen. If someone were to tell me that my child or grandchild won't have access to wealth or may live a simple, humble life, it would bother me. But if someone were to tell me that, may Allah protect, that someone from any of our progenies were to be outside of Islam, it would destroy me. Because clearly the value of Iman is greater than any other value that you have in this world. So when they went to these lands and they went to these communities, they had to create systems and models of preserving Iman. And the beautiful thing about Islam is that at its core, it doesn't change, but the adaptation of that deen then differs culturally. You have the capacity to change, but there are certain realities and principles that cannot change. Those are your realities, those are your truths. You can never compromise them. You will need to know what your truths are, and the world will need to fit within the vessel of those truths. Those realities cannot change, and therefore, in the science of Aqidah and Kalam, Aqidah more specifically, the scholars, the term they use to refer to something that's definitive. So, for example, in Hadith, we say Khabar Sahih or Mutawatir, meaning that definitive. This is an authentic, robust, inconceivable. It's inconceivable that someone collaborated to lie in this regard. It's the most authentic form of a statement. So in Aqidah, when we designate something to be a truth, we call it haqq. Allah حق, والنبي حق, والجنة حق, والنار حق. As Rasulullah, haq means it's an absolute truth. There's no doubt in it at all. So we have these realities that we need to ensure that we are clear on them. What are we sure of? What I'm sure of is this, and this, and this. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he's sending Mu'adh ibn Jabal to Yemen, that's the beauty of that conversation that he has with him. He asks him that when you go to Yemen, new people, new community, new reality, how do you solve matters there? بما تحكم بين الناس قال أحكم بكتاب الله فإن لم تجد فيه فبسنة الرسول فإن لم تجد فيه أجتهد برأيي ولا أرى. So he says, Rasulullah asks him, so what would you do when you go to Yemen? You'll be asked questions. He said, I will seek the answer in the Quran. If you don't find it there, then in the Sunnah. And if you don't find it there, then I will exert myself and I will find the answer. I will not fail you, O Messenger of Allah. فضرب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على صدره وقال الحمد لله الذي وفق رسول الله. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in a moment of joy, struck him on the chest like a pat. Good job. Struck him on the chest. And said, all praises for the one who guided the messenger of the messenger of Allah. There is a study of how Islam is practiced and how it's preserved in communities where Muslims were always a majority or have been a majority for an extended period, versus in communities where Muslims were and maybe even still are a minority. I think the example of India is a beautiful one. There is a scholar from Chicago who passed away, Abdullah Ghazi, some of you know him, great prolific writer, and he also, him and his wife, they wrote the Iqra Sunday School series that was more or less taught in every city of America. They've been here from, I don't even know, maybe the 60s or 70s. So I had a conversation with Abdullah Ghazi in his office, and he was saying this to me, he said to me that the lessons that can be learned from the example of Muslims in India specifically are very important for Muslims living in the West. We must not forget this is not the first time we have been a minority. This is not the first time. So if you go back there, you'll see that if you go to the Middle East and you were to say, what are the 5 kalimas? In the Desi world, everyone knows what that means. Awal kalima, dom kalima, som kalima. You memorized this when you were young. In the Arab community, they have no idea what that means. If you went to an Arab and said, what's the second kalima? He would say, I don't know what you're talking about. And the reason is because in a Muslim predominant society, that wasn't a tool that was adopted. Islam was prominent, it was everywhere, everyone knew the Shahada. But when you're a Muslim minority, you have to ensure that no matter where life takes you, you instill in kids from a young age certain realities. The first reality you will always remember is La ilaha illallah. Don't ever compromise that. Got that money? Okay. Second one, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Third one, ready? Subhanallah walhamdulillah. Fourth one, ready? La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. They teach these statements to them from a young age so they always know. So when people say, why is it that Muslims from the subcontinent are so particular about issues of, for example, eating dabiha and eating halal, well, it's because it's an identity issue. It's not just a fiqh issue. We've gone through this before. We have lived as minorities in Muslim lands, and our meat was always an identity issue. And so we take pride and we say that we are distinct from other people in the fact that we only consume meat that is sanctioned by Islam and has been slaughtered in a particular way. These things they're not just hyper-fiqh issues. If you go to a book of fiqh and check the average chapter on Sayyid and Nabaya, it's nothing too prolific, it's nothing too long, it's not outstanding in any way. Yet, same thing with moon sighting. If you open up a standard fiqh manual, how many, forget pages, lines are dedicated in Quduri to Ru'yatul Hilal? Anyone said Quduri? It's barely a page, 2 pages at tops. In most of it's about Jan Ghafir, right? إِذَا كَانَ فِي السَّمَاءِ عِلَّةٌ, that if the sky is cloudy versus not cloudy, in a big group and a small group, and that's what the issue is. And the reason is because these are not complicated fiqh issues, important because they represent more than just a 50 matter, which is okay, by the way. I'm not nudging that or knocking it off. I'm just saying these are realities. You accept these realities. So as Muslims living in the West, we have to also understand that when it comes to, now, here's one thing I'll tell you. I was giving the example of the subcontinent and certain things that are very important that were done there. Mawlana Zakir Rahmatullah Ali, Shaykh al-Hadith, one thing that you'll find in his writings that he commonly told, so for those of you who don't know, he was a great scholar of Hadith and a master in the science of the Tasawwuf and Tazkiyah. His writings are basically very diverse. You find them in almost every subject. He has books written there. He had many students who traveled the world and opened up their own seminaries and institutes. My own teacher, Yusuf Rahimahullah Ta'ala, was a student of Shaykh Zakir Rahimahullah Ta'ala. And later on, he published certain letters of correspondence between him and his Shaykh and some of the other students, prominent students, and his Shaykh. So one thing that our Shaykh would always tell us, he would say to us that Shaykh Zakir Rahimahullah Ta'ala, when he would bid farewell to any of his students, one of the first things that he would emphasize to them is go to your communities and open makatib. A maktab is basically language for evening Quran class. Go to your communities and open up evening Islamic school classes. Because Islam must be instilled in Muslims from a young age. They must be empowered with knowledge. In America, for some random reason, we thought that it was a good idea to rely on Sunday school. That became the norm, and we stuck with it. Sunday school is a model that's borrowed from the Christian community, and the Christians themselves admit it's a failed model. And I'm sure you guys have amazing Sunday school, and may Allah give barakah at it. But as a model for sustainability, for educating Muslims generation after generation, it's a bad idea. What we're saying is 3 hours a week will do the job. How does that work when we're trying to prepare people for the akhirah, giving them 3 hours a week? I understand that there was a time where Muslims were in a minority, people were busy, they didn't have time, smaller masajid, no resources, but we're still doing Sunday school in metropolitan cities of America. Why are Muslim kids not coming to the masajid on the daily? Why are they not coming in the evenings? And if your masjid does that, kudos to you. But most of America isn't doing that. Right? They dedicate more time to Quran and soccer practice and gymnastics than they're dedicating to their deen. Your affair with seeking knowledge needs to be a regular affair. When it comes to seeking knowledge, for many of our young folks, and I speak for myself because this was my experience growing up in America, it wasn't intellectually or spiritually engaging in any way at all. It was very instructional in the sense that these are 10 things you need to memorize. These are 10 things you will need to do. These are 10 points in history that you will need to remember. It happened to me much later in my teens where I understood that there was even a spiritual element to any of this information. When we first to start up top, as Muslims living in the West, we will need to understand that how we impart knowledge to the generations that follow plays a big role on the longevity of Iman in generations to come and in our communities at large. We must be careful of not overpowering people with just information or using flawed and faulty models of education that are not proven. What we need is to create systems that work. And we have a lot of precedent for this. Maktab systems have worked in, almost every country, every Muslim country in the world has some form of this. Go to Saudi Arabia and you'll see kids in the evening with their Quran classes in Harmony. Have you guys seen it? Just sitting there doing their tilawah, reading their Quran. Go to Turkey, it's the same thing. Go to Malaysia, it's the same thing. Where learning your deen is not a weekly affair, it's a daily affair. It's embedded in you. It's embedded into you. It's ingrained in you. When you come to a school 3 hours a week and all the other 19 kids in your class are in this wild environment of public school like you may be, what kind of quality of classroom experience are you expecting during those 3 hours? Considering the teachers are also very sincerely and most likely not qualified to teach the subjects of Islam. Again, not knocking them, just pointing out certain realities. Okay, please don't take offense to this. There needs to be a whole altogether. And that overhaul comes with, first and foremost, setting a higher bar for education. This advice of Sheikh Hadith that we need to introduce makatib, that there needs to be a strong, robust maktab system, that not only are children learning the huruf of the Arabic language and connecting them and learning literacy to read the Quran, but they're also learning to engage with it. They're learning what they need to know, what we call madab. They're learning what they need to know to be Muslims, the basics, basic adab, etiquettes, basic Islamic law, basic tafsir, basic hadith. So when they reach an age of maturity and they're going to college, we as an ummah can have a level of confidence knowing that Muslims that are about to face the wildest part of their life are somewhat prepared to face that life. Otherwise, we're just rolling the dice every time a Muslim enters into college. We're just rolling that dice, hoping that the numbers are right, otherwise it's going to end terribly. We can create two forms of society. Either we can try to create idealistic societies that are based on perfection, so we have a model of what perfection means to be a Muslim. In that case, you won't be able to integrate into the greater community that you're a part of. So we don't send our kids to. So in that idealistic society, the outcome is that you don't send kids to college, because haram is going to happen there, so they shouldn't go to haram. Don't do it. We shouldn't have people working corporate American jobs because there are girls there who wear skirts, and the guys should not be looking at girls who wear skirts. So, as a part of that idealistic society worldview, you have to leave that. Which, by the way, I give credence. It's a position. May Allah give barakah to those who live by that. It's surely a tough choice, but it's one that I have no doubt carries reward and benefit in your sacrificing, right? But for the 99% of the Muslims out there, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to go to some form of school. Islamic school isn't affordable to people. So where there are 200 kids that are paying for $500 a month, 200 parents that are paying, kids are paying anything. Parents that are paying for kids to go to Islamic school $500 a month, and so therefore they're able to have some sort of Islamic environment. There are maybe another 2,000 that are not doing that, and they're not capable of doing that. So the question is, which segment of society are we catering towards? Are we catering towards this idealistic world that we want everyone to be in and hope everyone is there, which is great? I don't think we should. I understand the options for them to choose how to study the deen are abundant. You can go to Azhar University, go to Deoband, go to Medina University, go to any of these places, or the equivalents in our local lands. It's an easy thing to choose. There really isn't much to choose. It's which one is better, because they're all amazing. But what happens to the Muslims who we know that will get striped out when they show up to those seminaries because they're not at that place in life where they would be accepted there? Are you guys following what I'm saying? What models do we have for the active Muslims? Personally, I feel like this is a question that I'm easily able to connect to, because growing up in Kentucky, I didn't come from a religious family. I really didn't. My mom was a convert, my dad worked a hustle. Didn't have any access to knowledge. There was a masjid, there was an imam that would come in Ramadan to lead the Tarawih prayer, and that was that. I recall being told to go to his school, and I remember the teacher saying, this kid's not cut for it, multiple times. And they were right, by the way. I'm not, again, knocking them. I accept that. They were right in the fact that this kid is not cut for it. They were right every time they said it. And there were many Islamic schools that I got, madrasas that I got turned down because my father was not a part of the Deen Jama'ah, or he wasn't a part of, because they had conditions that in order for you to join your father, he needs to do 40 days, or he must have been 4 months or a year. And so I was turned on to the schools. And again, I'm not knocking on the schools. I understand they have a standard, and they have the right to have standard. They're the school, right? They're trying to maintain an environment, and they want people to be like-minded. And Hussein was not one of those people. So being turned away was acceptable, right? There's no need to be disgruntled about it. And it was hard to come across a place, and I wonder for myself, but when I look at younger folks today in today's world, that where do they go to seek knowledge? Because the question is that either you come in the way you have to be to study here, or you're on your own. But yet you can't study online because that's not okay either. So if you go study online, that's problematic. You can't do that. You go study online, you're going to get confused. Yet if you want to come and study at Medina University or Azhar University or Deoband or any of these prestigious organizations, there is a very clear-cut type of student that must come in. So if we're talking about preserving Islam for Muslims in America, what happens in the future? The one thing there is no doubt about is there will always need to be models of engaging with people who are neither here nor there. And I think that's one thing that was amazing about the work of Mawlana Ilyas Ta'ala, the Institute of Tabligh Jama'ah. Because that's what he was doing there. He understood that there was a large group of people that were sitting in the masses that were not, if we wish to say, cut out to be scholars, or they weren't ready for that journey in their life. But yet they still had to be educated, they had to be engaged, they had to be somehow stimulated so they could be brought to the deen. And I don't think there's any doubt in the fact that it was truly a reformative experience for anyone who was a part of that movement. I mean, for many till today, it's a powerful movement, right? As Muslims living in the West, these are conversations that we need to have, that what kind of institutions are we establishing? And who are we engaging? Is the purpose of our institute to share knowledge that has been taught to us by our teachers while ignoring the context of the world that we live in? Or is it to understand the reality of the world that we're in and ensure that people have solutions to be Muslims in the world they are existing in while being tethered to revelation? These are hard conversations. And the truth is that when it comes to studying the deen or practicing deen, people want solutions. Why do people study Islamic law for solutions? Why are they studying the Quran for solutions? Because they're trying to understand how to make sense out of the wild, crazy, sticky world that we live in. The importance of higher Islamic education comes in right here. This is where it comes in. That there is a level of Islamic knowledge that's necessary, bare minimum, basic, fundamental. But then there is a level of knowledge that's above that, that requires you to put hard work in because it gives you the ability to tussle and wrestle with the problems of the world. A bare minimum Islamic knowledge would work if you were living in a simplistic society. But in a world where people are constantly, and I said this at Adams yesterday, at the Adams House, that in a world where we are constantly looking at our screens and we're watching movies and watching TV shows, and the ideologies that are being imposed on us through our movies and TV shows are truly sophisticated. The form of atheism that's being sold to you in a very subtle way through your humor online is sophisticated. Do you guys understand that? This is in itself a reason why you should not allow your family members, if you love them, to watch TV. I'm not giving a fatwa here, I'm just telling you. You're allowing them to be abused. I would never allow my child to watch TV, at least not something that I didn't feel I felt comfortable with. And the analogy that I give is that I wouldn't let them sit with anyone on the street to talk to. If my child was going to have a conversation with someone, I would verify this is someone that I'm comfortable my child speaking to. If my child is going to spend half an hour a day, or even half an hour a week talking to someone, it needs to be someone I'm okay with. And if I'm not verifying that with TV, and these days, Disney, and what's that one company that goes to Disney? They're making all these movies these days. Pixar. The L and all. With the L. Pixar. They're just open about their agenda. These days, I mean, like, they're pushing specifically the LGBT agenda on Muslims. They're not even they're just pushing it on their audiences at large, and they're no longer even hiding it. That's it. They're not even hiding it. They're just point about it. This is what we're doing. If you like it, continue. Otherwise, you're out. So, how is this supposed to work? Somebody explain to me that Muslims who have a bare minimum knowledge of their deen, base level, entry level, Islamic school, Sunday school level knowledge of their deen, are supposed to handle fitnas this big without actually increasing the volume on their side themselves. I don't think it adds up. So who do you go to? You go to your parents. They say, I don't know. You go to your imam, they definitely know. They engage you, they answer. You have another fatwa, you go to them again, which Allah reward the imams for taking up time and for engaging in these issues. But at the end of the day, as an imam myself, I'll tell you, I'm a person. How many questions am I going to filter? It's triage here. And triage is no way to keep people healthy. We have to change the diet. The whole system needs to change. It needs to get overhauled. And that overhaul comes with us ensuring that Islamic higher education, I'm talking Islamic school and even beyond that, but I'm more interested in beyond that because at Qalam I teach at a seminary and our program is for students that have graduated from the high school. That why don't you come and study where we can teach you Islam in a context that is modern and relatable to you. So if you ask me, what book am I teaching? I'm still teaching Quduri, by the way. I'm still teaching Islamic law. But in a way that will help you and benefit you, where you understand how Islamic law is implemented and applicable in the 21st century. You're still going to study Tafsir Hadith. I will still teach you the Shaf. You will still study the Muqaddamah of Muslim. I teach Sahih Muslim at Qalam. And Sheikh Abdul Nasir, I spent 2 months teaching the introduction to Sahih Muslim. For those of you who have read it, it's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece to understanding the science of Hadith at large. But when I teach the introduction of Sahih Muslim at Qalam, for me, it's not just a matter of teaching methodology and historical tradition in terms of principles and outlines of how it is accepted or rejected, but when I taught the Muqaddamah of Sahih Muslim at Qalam, I said to them, we will learn through the Muqaddamah of Imam Muslim Sahih how to validate information and what is fake and true news in the world that we live in, where realities no longer exist. Where do you trust? What's a system of verifying information? So now how do you relate this to? Because you can either study Mustalah al-Hadith as a historical system, which is phenomenal, great. Or you can understand how we are in need of Tadween al-Hadith, or the sciences and the procedures for that in our day and age today, because there are multiple polls that show that with everyday human beings are losing trust in news. Are you guys following me here? And if you lose trust in news, and facts no longer remain facts, we are in for a very, very nasty future. You guys ever seen the documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma? You seen it? It's cool. Anyone else here seen it? You seen it as well? First of all, I'll tell you this. You have to watch it. It is a must watch. So I don't know if you remember, I told you too. It's a very important show to watch. It's a 1 hour, 1.5 hour thing called Social Dilemma. And at the end of this documentary, spoiler alert, the producer posits the very strong possibility that this country is on a way to a civil war. And the arguments he presents before he posits this, one thing that he says is that the reason is because truths no longer exist. A truth could be whatever you want it to be as long as you put enough marketing dollar into it. And people are now locked into echo chambers of fabricated truths. So the center that is usually tethered to some form of truth no longer exists because truth is no longer there. They're either drifting way to the right or way to the left. And it's only a matter of time before these two can't coexist any longer and will literally destroy one another. It boils down to the unfortunate reality that we have lost control of information. Hence, ulum al-hadith, why it's so important that you must tether yourself and connect yourself to realities. Haqq, tawajud, sahih. That there are ways where you know what's true and not true. And if we say something is true, the Quran is true, that means all other things that claim to be true other than the Quran will definitively be rejected. So if Rasulullah is teaching us that the natural way of building society is through the nikah, the male and female, and any other alternative truth that is proposed, reality is not a truth. Because we have a truth here, we have a reality, this is a how. The overall level of literacy when it comes to Islam will need to grow. We will need to raise it. We will need to grow as a community. Starting with younger folks to middle-aged folks. We need a lot more seminaries, a lot more. We need these to exist also in the country. And I referenced this in the morning session at the one we just did right now. The brother who was the MC, he said something, and it was very good what he said. He said that the truth is, most Muslims don't interact with scholars on the day-to-day. Is that true? Do you guys agree with that? This is a simple observation. Most people do not interact with scholars on the day-to-day. They interact with other Muslims, other humans, like you guys interact with another, your spouse, your children, cousin, uncle, neighbor. Just factually speaking, you interact with the Muslims on the day-to-day, not the scholars. So he then quoted Dr. Jackson, who said on this note, that increasing literacy in scholars won't necessitate in large change. Even though it will, having scholars is important, don't misunderstand it. But if you want big, instant change or like gradual, immediate change, you need to increase the literacy of the average Muslim. Increasing the literacy of scholars, that creates these powerhouses who will interact with a limited number of people and change them, which is great. We need that. That never ceases to exist. So we need students to go through a 5-year Adamiyya program, a 10-year Adamiyya program, or Ottoman 15-year Adamiyya program, if that's what you want. But if we want to see change in Laurel, in the DMV, in this East Coast, this nation, and even globally, the average level of literacy needs to increase. So I can either choose to teach a 1-year program on, I don't know, Islamic history, or I can travel the country and teach people Tafsir al-Fatiha and Yasin. The second will have a greater impact because you're contributing towards increasing the general literacy of people. And that's what our seminaries are about. That yes, we have a 5-year program where students come to study the Adamiyya, but the truth is, I'm not interested in people studying the Adamiyya program, even though there are, alhamdulillah, a lot of people that's taken it. What I'm interested in is ensuring that that first year of our Adamiyya program, the second year, the first and second year, my dream is that every Muslim in this nation takes 1 year off of college or 1 year off of their professional life and spends 1 year with us. That's it. Just 1 year. They're not doing the whole 5-year Adamiyya, they're just taking the first of that 5 years. Then go back to your career, go become a doctor, go become a physician, go become a lawyer, go be an engineer. I just need to know that moving forward, you will have 70% literacy of Quran. I need to know that. That's going to put me to sleep and make me happy at night, knowing that this person who now goes to sleep will have an understanding of what Allah is saying to them. That they have a fundamental understanding of mala budda min, what is necessary in their life. You're someone who wants to study more, take another year. Take another year. Study Islam in its course from traditional resources. You want to study more, take 3 more years. That's where we broke our Aliyah out into 5 years broken out into 3 units. There's year 1, which we view as pure enrichment. You're learning Arabic and the fundamentals of Islam. Year 2, where we hope to believe that the graduates in this are junior contributors able to serve under senior and well-seasoned imams, maybe to a youth halaqah, community university lecture, be able to offer services to the more senior imams. And then there are those who want to continue, and they're with us for the long haul. These are people who finish off the Aliyah program. And then those who want to continue, we have the 2-year post-grad study, which is obviously going very far into it. The seminary has close to 250 students from across the nation. The Aliyah year usually has somewhere between 10, 15, 20 students per class, those last 3 years. But the first year, 100 students. And the goal is to increase that. That year 1 program becomes a staple. And it doesn't have to be ours, by the way. We're happy and confident in what we do because we do it. But this sort of program needs to be recreated and reprinted and reposted throughout this nation, where there are 100 of these programs, where Muslims dedicate 1 year of their life to go and study them. and we have a program for the rest of the day. So I'll conclude here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept and grant barakah and grant us the ability to benefit from these institutions and allow us to see the importance of seeking knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to benefit from ulama and keep us in your shadow and allow us to be in those ulama as well. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا
Jazakallah khair, Mufti Kamani, for those words of wisdom. I'll next like to introduce Mufti Mushiallah Bayat. Mufti Mushiallah also grew up in the United States, right here in Laurel, Maryland, Islamic Community Center in Laurel. Mufti Mushiallah completed his memorization of the Quran also at a young age, at age 13. He studied in Egypt and acquired his ijaza in different recitations of the Quran. And he initially began his alim studies with the Maryland Institute of Development and completed his last 3 years in Darul Uloom in Bury, England. Mufti Mushiallah also studied Bukhari Sharif and completed his specialization in fiqh at Darul Uloom in Blackburn, England, where he graduated just 3 weeks ago with his IFTA degree. He is still pursuing his information systems degree in his 3rd year. He has been teaching in part of the MID administration for the past 3 years and provides advanced Islamic studies, essentials programs, Quran and fiqh classes, and spiritual health sessions. Mufti Mushiallah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين ولينذروا قومهم إذا رجعوا إليهم لعلهم يحذرون. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be able to be present here today. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the tawfiq to be able to have this discussion, which is very long overdue. I believe in the last 20 years, since we've been here, this is the first time we've had this type of discussion. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give barakah in this discussion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also make this discussion a source of light, a source of nur, and a source of guidance for everyone present here, inshallah, and for the whole world at large. Unfortunately, Mufti Saab has taken everything I was about to speak of. So everything I had planned in my mind, mashallah, he has taken it and he has already said it, mashallah. So, alhamdulillah, we think alike. We're on the same page, alhamdulillah. However, there is one thing that I would like to turn our attention to, and that is the fact that with the inception of every single thing, with the creation of every single thing, ilm is necessary. One of the first things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created was the pen, qalam. Allama ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentioned there's many different opinions in regards to the first thing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. However, Allama ibn Kathir rahimahullah, he mentions that most scholars are of the opinion that the first thing that was created was the pen, meaning the tool of knowledge. Furthermore, if you look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? He creates Adam alayhi salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Baqarah, he mentions the creation of Adam alayhi salam. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do after he has created Adam alayhi salam? إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. Really, I am making you a representative upon the earth. You and your progeny, representative upon the earth. And then what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do after he's made him a representative? وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها ثم عرضهم على الملائكة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives ta'lim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives knowledge to Adam alayhi salam. ثم عرضهم على الملائكة. Then he presents him in front of the malaika, the angels. Before this, the angels were saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why have you created a creation? Why have you created this creation? The angels were used to the jinn before. And the jinn were known for their mischief on the earth and their fasad that they spread upon the earth. They were known for this. So the angels asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why have you created this creation? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives ta'lim, He gives ilm to Adam alayhi salam. And then He says, Adam, what's this? What's the name of this? What's the name of that? To which the angels had no reply. They had no reply because they had not been given the same ilm that Adam alayhi salam had been given. One of the first revelations that was sent down to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions the first revelation that was sent down to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What's the first revelation that was sent down? Iqra, read in the name of your Lord. The one who created you. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions creation. Allah mentions read first, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions creation. So I think from these verses, and there are many different verses in the Quran and the Hadith, and from the Athar of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum regarding knowledge. But just from these few things, I think we can get the idea of our relationship with knowledge. Our relationship with knowledge, our ta'alluq, our connection with knowledge. You cannot have a society, you cannot have a successful society, you cannot have a successful business, you cannot have a successful family, you cannot have a successful marriage. I can keep going on, by the way. You cannot have a successful anything unless you first have ilm, you first have knowledge. Let me give you an example. Na'udhu billah, one of us, we have to get surgery. We have to get brain surgery. Allah protect us all. Allah keep us in the best of health. So, some guy comes up and he says, I read every single book on brain surgery. I read every single book on brain surgery. I've watched all the YouTube videos, right? Again, I'm correlating it to our sort of modern day society. Right? Everyone will get the hint. But anyway, you read all these different books on surgery. You watch all these YouTube videos. And then he says, you know what? I can take out your tumor. What are you going to say to him? Anyone? Any doctors here? What are you going to say to that person? You know, I'm sure you'll have some very harsh words for him, right? I'm sure you have some very harsh words for him. And we are in America, so maybe you might even sue him, right? But from a worldly perspective, we are not willing to accept someone who does not have the prerequisites to do something. Right? How long does it take to get to medical school? First of all, you have to go through the whole schooling system. 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical, you have to get a medical degree in a medical school. You have to take many examinations, right? Your hair turns white by then. And then you have to do 6-7 years of supervised practice. Then you can call yourself Dr. Saab, right? Then you can call yourself a doctor. So, the prerequisite of anything is knowledge. The prerequisite of anything is knowledge. And unfortunately, we have not lived up to that. We have not lived up to that. Ever since we've come from the 1960s, I believe, even before that, we have not lived up to this ideal of knowledge of ilm. I went one day to Sunday school, and they told me to teach Al-Rahiq al-Makhtoom, a biography of Rasulullah sallallahu, the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, very good book. I went into class, and I says, and I noticed that the students were having trouble with the content, so I closed the book, and I said, who is Allah? Now, one kid blurted an answer. He mentioned, who is that? Who is that? So, what have we done for our children? What steps have we taken for our progression to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? You know, we mentioned the word ilm, knowledge. What is ilm? Ilm is ma'rifah. Ilm is recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is our purpose in our life, in this life? What is our purpose? Our purpose is a recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have a child that goes to school, how many hours of school a day? 7? I think 7 is a good average. 5 days a week, right? 35 hours of school. 35 hours of being bombarded with ideologies which are contrary to Islam. 35 hours a week of being bombarded with things, with disgusting images, with disgusting ideologies. How can we expect our children to prosper if we don't counteract this with ilm? If we don't have systems in place where they can come every day to the masjid and they can learn ilm from authentic sources, how are we able to how are we able to counter this? It's impossible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala found ilm to be so important that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِن كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ. That why doesn't a group, every single community in the world? Now remember, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to the whole Muslim world at this time. He's not talking to some isolated community, the whole Muslim world. Why doesn't a group from each of these communities go out? The community of ICCL, the community of ISB, all these different communities. لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ, so that they can gain understanding in the deen. It might, understanding in the deen might not be available in your area. You might not have the scholars in your area. You might not have the resources in your area. But why doesn't each group go out? Why doesn't a group from each of these communities go out so that they can gain understanding in the deen? وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ, so that they can warn their people when they go back to them. And this warning, after these people, after this group has gone out and gained knowledge, and after they come back to their communities and warn their people, isn't that the same thing the Prophet used to do? Al-ulama warathatul anbiya. The ulama are the inheritors of the prophets. The same way the prophets would go to their people, they would warn their people of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they would enjoin good to their people. They would refrain from the evil to the people. In a very similar manner, the same system continued on in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We no longer have prophets. Bani Israel, whenever one prophet would die, another prophet would come. They'd kill that prophet, another prophet would come. Over 60,000 prophets Bani Israel had. We no longer have that protection from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made another system for us. Another protection. What's our protection? It's the ulama. And it is authentic knowledge. وَلْيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ, that they should go and they should warn their people so that they be warned. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ, so that they be warned. This initiative of warning is something, alhamdulillah, we have started off in this community. When Sheikh Jabir first came to this community, how many Huffaz were there? Anyone? Anyone from the old community? MashaAllah, the chairman of the board is here. How many Huffaz were there?
Not many.
1?
Maybe.
Oh, 0. Okay, subhanAllah. Okay. 2. We had to import Huffaz from abroad to come. We had to host them the whole year. Okay. Oh, sorry, not the whole year, the whole month. The whole month. How many Huffaz are there now in our community? How many ulama were there 20 years ago in this community? 1 or 2? How many ulama do we have now? Inshallah, we'll actually have our graduation, in which we will be graduating 8 ulama. 11 ulama, subhanAllah. Okay, even the number is increasing, subhanAllah. I've been out for quite a bit. 11 ulama will be graduating from our organization. Subhanallah. وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ. It only takes one person. It only takes one person to go to these communities and warn the people. It takes one person to go to these communities to bring up the level of that community. And that's one of our main purposes in MIT, Maryland Institute of Development. This is one of our main purposes, that we produce these individuals who will go to these communities and who will fulfill the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will gain tafaqquh in deen, who will gain understanding in the deen, who will go to these places and who will raise these places. One example of this is Umar radiallahu anhu. Umar radiallahu anhu, he sent Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu to Kufa. Before he sent him to Kufa, he says to the people that I am sending one of the best amongst us to Kufa. I am sending one of the best amongst the Sahaba radiallahu anhu to Kufa. Now what happens is, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he goes to Kufa, and mashallah, وَلْيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُ. He then takes the people of Kufa as his people, and he starts teaching the people of Kufa. Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he later on passes away. Come the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu's students are still propagating the deen, and come to a time of Ali radiallahu anhu. During the time of Ali radiallahu anhu, politically he had a very difficult time. He was in a very difficult time in managing the Muslim empire. So he decided at that time to move the capital to Kufa. He decided at that time to move the capital to Kufa so he could take the trials and tribulations away from the blessed city of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So he moves to Kufa, and when he goes, he is shocked by what he finds in Kufa. He is shocked by what he finds in Kufa. He finds all these ulama, he finds all these students of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. And guess what? He goes and he starts questioning them. He starts taking their imtihan. He starts taking their examination. He starts taking their examination of what type of tarbiyah had they been given by Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. What type of knowledge have they been given? He starts taking their examination. And subhanAllah, he is very impressed with them. And then the students of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, they start praising him that he was like this, he was like this, he was like this. Ali radiallahu anhu says, Wallahi, I know even more than you guys in regards to the excellence of Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. If you look after the time of Rasul, after the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, all the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, they dispersed to these different lands. They dispersed to these different lands, and they revived the teachings, and they made flourish the teachings of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in these different lands. And that is our responsibility as Muslims. You know, in our countries back home, or even maybe 300 years ago or so, the Muslim governments would take it upon themselves to propagate the deen. However, we are in a time in which every single person is responsible to propagate the deen. It is not the work of scholars to propagate the deen, not only the work of scholars to propagate the deen, rather it is your responsibility, my responsibility, every one of us is our responsibility to propagate the deen. On the Day of Judgment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us that, O Muhammad, O Masih Allah, what did you do for the deen? I gave you such a beautiful country. I gave you a country in which there was aman, there was peace. I gave you a country in which there was prosperity. You didn't have to worry where your next meal was going to come from. You didn't have to be worried about being killed on the streets. You didn't have any of these worries. What did you do? What did you do for my word? What did you do for me? What will our answer be? So again, the propagation of deen, especially for those amongst us living in the Western countries, is a responsibility of each and every one of us. No exception. However, what are you going to propagate? ABCs? You have to propagate ilm. One of the prerequisites of propagation of the deen is that one has some knowledge. One has knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One has knowledge of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One has knowledge of the basic aqa'id, the basic fundamental beliefs of Islam. And again, coming back to our organization, this is what we want to achieve. Recently, we've actually launched a new program, inshallah, in September 15th, we'll be starting. It's called the Sanatain program. 2 years, part-time. Give us 2 years of your life part-time. 6 hours a week, online or in person. Come to class. We want to teach you the fundamentals of deen. We want to teach you that which will suffice you. Imagine this, that you pray Salah for 50 years of your life. You pray Salah for 50 years of your life. And you don't know you have to ghusl. If you have a major impurity, you have to ghusl to clean yourself. Imagine if you don't know that. Unfortunately, we have come across cases like that. That people do not know how to do ghusl properly, do not know how to clean themselves properly. One of the conditions of prayer is that you're in a state of purity. People have been praying for 50, 60 years, and they're not in a state of purity. Imagine that. What are you going to say in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Allah asks you, what did you do? Oh Allah, I prayed all these salah for you. He says, no, you didn't pray these salah. It wasn't done with the proper conditions. The prerequisites of salah weren't there. Whenever you fill out any form, if you take a government form, and you try to fill out the form, and you fill out the way you want to fill it out. Like, forget the rules, I'm going to fill out the way. Allah's Rahim, Allah's Rahman, Allah's, you fill it out the way you want to fill it out. And you give the form in. Will that form be accepted? That form will not be accepted, that form will be rejected. So why do you expect the same thing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why do we expect the same thing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who is the king of all kings? Shan Shah. He is the king of all kings. The master of the day of judgment. The master of all the worlds. The master of every single iota of existence. Why do we expect that same thing? Especially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given these facilities. Recently I went on Delta Airlines, and when I was on Delta Airlines, they literally took bread, cross off, they put it into the person's lap. They put it into the person's lap. We're literally in a place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has literally given the ilm to us on our doorstep. You want scholars who are trustworthy scholars where you can get ilm from? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that on your doorstep, on our doorstep. So why do we not take advantage of this opportunity? I'll leave you with one thing. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he was very meticulous about his sahih, his collection of hadith. The way he formatted his collection of hadith was that he would have a chapter title, and then he would have the hadith beneath the chapter title. Now here's one chapter title, Al-Ilmu Qabla Al-Qawli Wal-Amal. That ilm precedes anything that a person says, and ilm precedes any action that a person does. Meaning the prerequisite for that is that a person has correct knowledge of the action. So I'll leave you with this question. Do each and every one of us have the correct knowledge for everything that we do? Do each of us have the correct knowledge for everything that we say? I'll leave you with that, inshallah. Let it be a point of pondering, a point of reflection. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives the tawfiq to be able to gain knowledge and to be able to take benefit of these wonderful resources and these organizations that we have, inshallah. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Jazakallah khair, Mufti Basirullah, for those excellent reminders and those words of wisdom. I would like to now welcome to the table Maulana Javed Bayat. Maulana does not need any introduction for any of you present here, but for those of you who are online, Maulana Javed has led the ICCL community well over 15 years as the Imam of this masjid and is currently holding the position of the ICCL Educational Director. Along with this role, Maulana Javed is the President of the DMV Ulama Council, comprised of many scholars from DC, Maryland, and Virginia, created to address critical issues and bring them to a proper perspective informed by the Quran and Sunnah. Maulana Javed is also the founder and head of the Maryland Institute of Development. We would like to ask Maulana to share a few words, and then we will open up the floor question and answer. As you all know, the Maryland Institute of Development has been running in this local area for many years now. It's been extremely successful. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserve this institute so that the future of our children can be set. If any of you have any questions regarding the MID and the way it is run and the specifics, today is the perfect day to ask those questions. So inshallah, we'll open up the floor after Malana speaks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. قال الله تعالى قل هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون إنما يتذكر أولو الألباب. Brothers, sisters, respected ulama, sulaha, this is supposed to be an open discussion forum, and hopefully we can have an open discussion in regards to sacred knowledge and the avenues of attaining that knowledge. But I'd like to say a few words. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا إِن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. It is not what you want that happens. This whole world, this dunya, this system, and every process in this dunya is controlled explicitly in the control of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything that moves, every leaf that moves, everything that happens by the will of Allah. Anything that manifests itself, it also manifests itself because it is in the divine knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah makes it flourish and makes it happen in a manner that He wants it to happen in. We have absolutely zero control over the outcome. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has been in control from the beginning and will continue to be in control till when we are not here. The deen and how it flourishes and how it spreads and who is utilized and who is not utilized, everything is in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All me and you can hope for, that maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity that we might be included in that ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in that command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be in service of His supreme religion. Ameen. Otherwise, how the deen flourishes, how it is taught, how sacred knowledge is spread in the community, in society, in the United States of America, me and you are just tools. This entire process, the total control of the process, is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are nothing but just tools that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inshallah utilizes for this noble cause. When we understand that, then we also understand that things don't happen because you think or you are somehow a party to it happening. Things happen, there is movement because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates that movement. Many years ago, in the 80s, 89, my Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi, Olam Halim Sahib rahmatullahi alayhi, visits the Laurel area. At that time, masjid used to be in Yahya Sab's, He's witness to what I am saying. Shaykh rahmatullahi alayhi visits the Laurel area. At that time, there was nothing here except the musalla that used to be offered at Yahya Sab's house. Shaykh rahmatullahi makes dua, Ya Allah, that allowed in this area that a fountain of knowledge or rivers of knowledge flow from this area. Dua made in 1989. It just so happens that one of his students, which is myself, happens to come into this area just by chance. If you believe in chance, then you have to also believe that the who creates those chances, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can remember in 1994 we were in Haram with our Shaykh. They said that you have
freshly graduated, why don't you go to the Huda of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and ask him that where will you be utilized, where will your services be utilized? So I did as my Shaykh asked me to do. I went and made dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows me this dream, and I got scared. I live in England, my family is in England, my brothers and sisters, my entire family is there, but there seems to be this subtle indication that I have to go to the United States of America. And I continuously see the dream for 3 days. But khair, eventually, either by, if you still want to call it chance, you can call it chance. But it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually brings us to the United States of America. And I hadn't even sat with the community for a month. I says, what should be what? And I'm thinking to myself, what shall we teach them? What shall I teach them? Brings me to this narration of Jubair ibn Nufair, who narrates an incident from Ubadah ibn Samit radiyallahu anhu. And he says that, because do you know what Abu Darda is saying, that how ilm will be taken away from the people? Because how will ilm be taken away from the people? He goes, Ziyad ibn Lubayy radiyallahu anhu, he said that he was sitting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that in regards to the snatching of knowledge from the people, so Zubair, he makes this comment. Ziyad makes this comment and he says, Ya Rasulullah, how will knowledge be snatched away when we have the Quran with us? It was a statement, that was his observation. Because the reason the knowledge will be taken away was because the Prophet ﷺ said to him, I thought you were a knowledgeable person. Before today, I thought you were a very knowledgeable person. But after you made this statement, there seems to be some doubt in it. Because what is it? Because doesn't the Quran, doesn't the Injil and the Zabur and the Torah still exist with the Christians and the Jews? So if the criterion just because we have the Quran, and this is what Shaitan gives us. You have the Quran, but just because we have it doesn't mean that we have the ilm of it. Having it doesn't mean that we have the ilm of it. That's very important. Today we have the Quran, but we don't have the ilm of it. In another, the same thing happened, same narrator. And the first narration now they narrate, he comes to Ubadah ibn Samit and he goes, forget that, shall I tell you what is the first ilm that is going to be taken away from the people? And this was my first observation when I came to the United States. He goes, the first knowledge that is going to be taken away from the people is what? Take a guess, so that I know that you guys are awake. Good guess. But the knowledge, first actual part of knowledge that is going to be taken away.
Truth.
Who said that?
Truth.
Who gives it? Good guess, but no. Humility. Because humility is the first chapter of knowledge that is going to be taken away from the people. When I first came, I says, everybody here is an alim. Everybody here is a scholar. Literally, I used to see people with Bukhari Sharif in their hands and say, look, this hadith in Bukhari. So I said, okay. The first thing that we did was, says, let me teach them a small fiqh course. So there was a small little book on fiqh. I said, let me teach it. Taught that for a couple of months, made I think people realize that there might be more to the knowledge than they think, and probably know, they probably, what they know is not, what they think that they know is not true, a reality. And from there, I said, I taught them figuratively, what should I teach them now? Because let me just teach them the first part of the Arabic language, first books. It started teaching from there, and this is where we are today. The reason we could not establish this for our children, or this, we just didn't have the human resources to do so. A concentrated of scholars in one area, concentrated of knowledgeable people in one area, that can invest in that same community, we just didn't have the human resources prior to today to do that. But alhamdulillah, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we started teaching the program, when Umar came, when Adil came, and then, mashallah, we have 15 ulama who actually currently teach with us. And mashallah, 11 who are going to graduate. We now have the human resources to actually put full-time programs in place. We just didn't have the human resources to do that before. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahmatullahi alayhi, a man comes to him and he says to him, teach me something what your teacher has taught me. Teach me something what your teacher has taught me. So Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi becomes so happy. Wow, what a question. Then he narrates on Abu Sulaiman Darani, which is the teacher of Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi alayhi. He says that إِذَا أَقَدْتَ نَفْسَكَ, when you tie, aqad, they say aqdul nikah. Aqd means to tie. Because إِذَا أَقَدْتَ نَفْسَكَ عَلَى تَرْكِ الْآثَامِ, when you make a firm intention of leaving and abstaining from evil and sin, جَالَتْ فِي الْمَلَكُوتِ. Subhanallah. Abu Sulaiman Darani rahmatullah, the teacher of Imam Ahmad rahmatullah, says, if you try to say this to somebody, he's going to say to you, where's your proof? He goes, your nafs will be allowed to travel and traverse in the kingdoms and the dominion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because جعلت في الملكوت وعادت إلى عبده, and the soul will return back to the servant بطرائف الحكم, with many anecdotes of wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless him with. من غير أن يؤدي إليه عالم علما, without even that knowledge being imparted to him by an alim. What happens is when you teach and you teach and you teach, and you couple that teaching and you couple that knowledge with taqwa, over time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you with an ilm that you didn't have before. And that is the purpose of having these institutes in place. The goal is to get there. When you graduate, you're not there yet. You're going to get there after years. And then Imam Ahmad rahmatullahi stands up and then he sits down. Then he stands up and he sits down. Then he stands up and he sits down. But he goes, let me tell you something even more astonishing than that. And then he narrates a narration from, and he gives a chain of narrators to Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. And he says, Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu narrates from the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Man amila bima ya'lam. A person who starts acting upon what he has acquired. Allah will teach him sciences that were completely unknown to him. So, in order first, you've heard the lectures, in order first to understand something, you have to take ilm. After taking ilm, when that is coupled with amal, something else is born. And that takes years to create those type of individuals. It takes years to create those type of personalities. And that is the goal and objective. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to continue our goals and objectives, and allow us to continue to guide us towards those goals and objectives, and give us people, personalities, individuals who are ready to go to those ranks and to be elevated to those ranks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept a secret within him, that it says that من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله به طريقا إلى الجنة. This is just one statement of the Prophet ﷺ, that a person, if he treads one of the paths in which, and just his intention is to attain ilm, attain beginning stages, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make his pathway, that his navigation towards Jannah will be easy. Otherwise, you will be in life without a navigation that is not directed towards Jannah. Just imagine trying to get from here to anywhere in the United States and you don't have a navigation. The same thing. Without ilm, you're without navigation. Without ilm, you're without navigation. So inshallah, with these words, I want to open the floor up for any questions and answers you might have. Any comments that you might want to make. Inshallah, we are all open to hear. And I think Mufti Sahib, he said that he was going to just get. So hopefully, if Mufti Sahib is here, is Mufti Sahib here? He's gone. Oh. Khair. Yes, inshallah. Any questions and comments? Yes.
Assalamu alaikum. So the new program you're starting is a 2-year program. What's the difference in that 2-year program versus the 2 years in the other?
Jazakallah khair, very good question. The question is what is the difference between the 2-year program and the Alim program? The difference is that we've come to realize that not everybody has the time to dedicate towards 6 years or 7 years or 8 years towards becoming an Alim and a scholar. And before we actually had the resources to actually complete it within a certain period of time, there used to be this unlimited time limit that the students used to sign up for, right, Haida? How many years have you been a student currently? 15 years maybe? More? Shh, don't tell anybody. But so before we just didn't have the human resources to complete it on time. It just used to be taught by 1 or 2 teachers, but now we do, alhamdulillah. But anyway, so now we realize that not everybody can become an alim. So what we did is we have taken the alim program, taken all the pearls out of that program, taken out the Arabic part, and now made it and simplified it for the masses, that this is what the 2-year program is, what every believer, every Muslim living in the Laurel area, living in the United States would need to be, this is what they will, the entire package, that this is what they need for their life. So that is the difference between the Ali program and but now the Sanatain program is still good enough for you to become a chaplain or something, but obviously an Ali is different and the Sanatain program would be different. It's just like when I first went to the Ali program, I said to my teachers, I want to be an Allama. Because what's an Allama? Because I thought I want to be a Buzurg. I want to be a Sheikh. Because then fa'ala. Because what's this got to do with me being a great Sheikh? Because no, first then fa'ala.
My initial intention was to go to the YouTube, because I feel tired sometimes after the prayer. But I thought, let me see and talk to my friend. And said, what do you think? He says, when you attend in person, you get something more. I just want to let you know that it was a fantastic program. And a lot of clarity that has been, and I was also very impressed by both the muftis. I had a very simple question about the 2-year program. You have some on when to start that, and if you provide the syllabus.
The syllabus is also available online at the institute, at the website. The teachers are also available online, inshallah. Do you want to provide the syllabus? Do you remember the syllabus? The syllabus for the student.
So, in terms of syllabus, we've taken out Arabic. So usually in the alim program, the first 2 years is focused on just Arabic itself. We then proceed to fiqh, and then after that, tafsir, and then hadith. This is sort of the pathway in our alim program. What we have done in the Sanadain program is over a period of 2 years, hadith, tafsir, and fiqh, and aqidah, we put these sciences and we abridge them for a 2-year program. In addition, in the sense that a person does not need to know Arabic and won't go into technicalities which require Arabic. So much of the learning that occurs in the alim program is focused on technicalities. So this word is like this, and this word, for example, has this root word, therefore this meaning can come of it. So in the Sanadain program, we've taken out these technicalities and we've just gotten straight to the sort of meat of things. And again, we believe that this will best serve, inshallah, someone who doesn't want technicalities, but wants enough knowledge, inshallah, that they can sort of live their life.
Somebody else had a question.
My question is, when should someone leave where they live if they don't find the proper channel for teaching their kids? So this is a day when we have Sunday school over there, and they don't have much going on. What should the criteria be for them to leave where they live to a place where they know there is more knowledge?
The question is, so when should a person decide to leave from where he's currently living in order to educate the children? I think that when it comes to the secular education, we always try to find the best of resources and best sources of education for our children. We go to trying to lean towards those areas. In a similar fashion, I think as a parent, you need to outline, okay, what do I want for my children? And then, okay, does my current community where I'm living in, can those goals and objectives be fulfilled? If the answer is yes, alhamdulillah. If the answer is no, then obviously in order to fulfill those goals and objectives, you will have to move into an area, do some research where those goals and objectives can be fulfilled. So it's relative to each parent has their own goals and objectives for their children. There was a brother at the back behind Farouk.
Yeah, so my question. So let's say I already did some time at the Qalam Institute, maybe 6 months. Would you guys be transferring credit, or is there anything like that? Did you come from another institute?
So, like today's, somebody just has registered, and they have studied in the shuyukh in Chicago, and they've done a lot of the modules of the initial modules of level 1, level 2, level 3, and some levels of modules of level 4. So, depending on what module has been completed, then yes. If you've not completed the modules, then no. So the whole course is now split up into modules. If you've completed certain modules, you get credit for them. If not, then you'll have to retake them. Does that answer your question? I mean, Al-Qalam has, mashallah, now got a campus that which they work out from. We don't have a campus as of yet, but inshallah we will. And we were, up till today, we were just teaching from ICCL. We were just using all the classrooms and everything that was available to us. And we continue to do so, inshallah, alhamdulillah. But inshallah, we will also have a campus soon, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. I have two questions. One, as a student who wants to, prospective student, I would say, and what is it needed from your perspective? How much time and how the classes are allocated?
So you will have one Sunday class, we'll have some classes on Sunday and 2 weekday classes. It is approximately a total dedication of time in the two-year program, which I hope which I
Yes,
think you're
that's
referring
right.
to, is approximately 6 hours of time with the teacher per week. And then obviously there'll be some study time that you'll need for yourself. So at least 6 hours of tuition time and in classroom time, and then outside classroom time. And now this course is available for men and women. All the women who are in the home, men who are at home. This is for everybody in the community. So remember, mashallah, some people have become ulama in our community, but now inshallah you also get the chance to step up and become fudala, at least if it is not ulama, you become fudala. That you also excel in knowledge and you learn and you also step up and you become something, inshallah. It will be a source of barakah for this community, but enhancing an entire group of people and bringing everybody up, that is, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a reality, inshallah.
Okay. And it is a sub-question, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And it's a two questions.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
नहीं कोई नहीं सॉरी नहीं क्या है
And the student may not be able to attend in-person classes, can he attend through the Zoom
Yes, yes.
or an MS Teams
Yes.
or something like that?
The classes will be offered online, and then just in case you have a dawah or somewhere and you have to go here and there, which I know that sometimes people are busy, the session is also recorded, so you can always go back to it.
And I think it's a final question. And what is the charges and how it is being paid?
I want to say it's about, if I say something and then it's different, it might be difficult, but I want to say it's approximately 150, right? 150 a month. That's what I'm thinking, 150 a month.
Registration is online.
Registration is also online for it. Now, that doesn't mean that those of you who have already enrolled in the Ali program, you switch to the Sanatin program. You guys are on a different path, and those of the Sanatin is a different path. But this is just a different path of learning. It's just this is avenue of learning for everybody now. Avenue of learning for everybody. G. Sisters, yes, please. Mufti Qareeb, who is currently also the teacher of Tirmidhi, and also teaches Ibn Majah on Nasai Shaykh. Inshallah, he will be teaching one of the modules of the Sanatin, inshallah. We're going to ask Maulana Adil, we're not sure yet, but we're trying to. I will be teaching one of the modules. Maulana Khalil will also be teaching maybe one of the modules for the Sanatin. So what we've done is we've put all the senior ulama who are seasoned teachers to actually teach the Sanatin program, because they will be able to give you in an hour what they have learned in a lifetime in regards to that whatever subject is being taught. Inshallah.
What is the prerequisite?
The prerequisite for the alim program, we definitely, there is a pre-alim program also, which is you have to be able to read Arabic fluently, Quran fluently, and you have to be able to meaning you should be able to write the Arabic. If I was to dictate to you something, you should be able to write that. That is for the alim program. And for the Sanatin program, there is no prerequisite. You are able to join because it's the whole program is in English.
What about age?
Because I would say that it's a good mind and they're learning.
Yes, a zeal for learning. Yes, yes.
You don't want the people who come and disrupt the program.
That's true. Inshallah, that's the teacher's responsibility to control the questions. That's the teacher's responsibility. The age, I would say that because it's a semi-adult program, teenage program, teenagers and adults together in the same class. Obviously, this class is definitely not for children, It's not for children who have not reached the age of puberty, but definitely it has to be past the age of puberty. Past the age of puberty. Because obviously there's going to be masail discussed that are of adult nature. Yes?
Some kids, let's say some kid is like mature, but they have not reached puberty.
No, because remember, some of the material is going to, we don't see, the child also has to have some kind of maturity there, because mature students in class. So there's also mature material that will be discussed. Maybe the LGBTQ issue might be discussed. Maybe women might be discussed. Maybe these issues might be discussed. That child has to be mature enough to be able to take. And I think puberty is important. Puberty is important.
So, a few questions from the sisters. The first one, what days will these classes take place during the week? Sundays, families usually take the time to spend together. It would help if these classes are during the week. I believe you answered that with the fact that the classes are recorded.
So they are recorded, and it's not Sunday, it will be a Sunday evening most probably, but we'll see. So that we try to take it out of where it's going to interrupt, or it could be Sunday during the day sometime where it's not interrupting with our social work that, hours and stuff like that we need to go to, our social commitments, but hopefully we will try to work around it. But because weekend is important, we can get a lot of work done during the weekend. I do believe 1 weekend and 2 weekdays is important. But again, let's just say hypothetically we get 50 students and all 50 students want to be taught on the weekday, then it could be okay.
So it's flexible. Do you know which weekdays?
Not yet. Not yet. It will not be a Friday. It will be it will be from Monday to Thursday.
And the two other questions sisters have are there exams and
Yes.
who are the teachers?
So the teachers have said that there will be exams. There will be one exam in the middle of the year and one exam at the end of the year.
And just one more came from them. For students in the Alim classes, are they able to take these classes so they can cut back on the years for the Alim classes? How many years for the Alim classes?
And let me give you an example. Have you ever heard of C++? Remember that course that people used to take? And what does it? C++, and then they get these other A+ courses and these courses. And then you get a job in the IT field, right? And then there's a person who graduates as information systems, and is there a difference between the two?
Yes.
There you go. There's a difference between the two. Yes, I'm getting you, and there's this other program that you can currently download. If you learn this program, you get a great job in the IT field. What was that? Salesforce or something, right? You take a couple of courses in Salesforce, you get, mashallah, 100,000 plus in the IT field. Fine. You're still in the IT field, but you're not an IT professional, right? There's a huge difference between the two. So those of you who are on the Alim program, Allah has given you that opportunity. I advise you to continue. Becoming a scholar, even if you are seeking the fishes and the animals of the earth are seeking dua of your forgiveness and increase of your rank, even as a scholar seeks. So there's a difference. But if you wanted to know, the answer to your question is, can some of the modules be transferred from the Alim program to that? Because it's one program is being taught in English, one program is being taught in Arabic. It's just two different ways of teaching the program. It's just completely different. We'll see at that time what will happen if those students who have actually done the Sanatain program, let's just say they wanted to learn the Arabic part, they can just take the Arabic modules and learn the Arabic part. They will enhance themselves quite a bit.
And how many years is the Alim program?
How many years? 7 years? 7 years?
So officially it's 8.
Officially it's 8, but the full-time program that we're going to be starting for the children, that will be 6 years. We haven't even announced that yet. Full-time program, every day, morning to evening.
What is the time frame you're looking for start for Salatin and
Sanatin, inshallah, starts September 15th.
and Alim class? What is used?
Alim's classes registration
No,
is
no, I'm talking
ongoing.
about the 6 years for the
Starts in September also.
full time
Full-time is for, is for adults and children also, yes. And also we just need $10 million, inshallah, and then we'll be able to I don't need more than that, but if I had half of that, if I had 5 million, the campus will be there tomorrow, literally tomorrow. It's already in sight. The location is identified. We just, inshallah, make dua for it, inshallah.
So, someone also asked, what is Sanatain mean?
Sanatain just means, sana means a year, sanatain means 2 years. That's why it's mashhur, ma'ruf, meaning that it's known as the 2-year program throughout the world. So we actually changed its called name to higher Islamic learning. I think higher Islamic learning. So, but we've also got in brackets sanatain so that you know what type of program it is. Jazakallah khair. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم اللهم انصرنا ولا تنصر علينا Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala assist us as do not assist others against us Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept those who have attended this program Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept us for the service of the deen. Ya Allah, make it easy for us to learn the Arabic language. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to understand the matters in regards to the deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq and guidance to become students of the sciences and students of the knowledge. Ya Allah, make it easy. Ya Allah, give us your divine guidance. And Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the divine guidance and tawfiq to sit with the ulama and learn from them. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of us, every single one of us for the service of your deen. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those elite individuals that are beloved to you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, you say in the Quran, وَقَلِيلٌ مِنْ عِبَادِي الشَّكُورِ that few of your servants are grateful, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, make us from those qaleel individuals and people that are grateful to you, Ya Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our sins, forgive our shortcomings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our deen and protect the deen of our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the ta'aleem and the education of our children in this community and the community at large and all the institutions that are offering sacred knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase them and give them barakah. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر والعظيم.
Jazakallah khairan for all those who attended. On your way out,